There already is an industry, an economy around cannabis, only that it's illegal.
We try to keep up with the changes. They check up on us regularly.
It seems to have potential for pain relief when opioids aren't effective, for instance.
And welcome to a new edition. I'm Nadia Sharbi, and this week we're putting the focus on cannabis. While the drug itself remains illegal in France, its wellness derivative, CBD, has become something of a green Eldorado. But where's the line between medical, therapeutic and recreational use? Let's start by weeding out the facts from the fiction.
5 million people regularly use cannabis in France, and at least 1 million of them smoke it at least once a day. This is known as recreational cannabis, which has a THC content of between 10 and 15%. THC is the main psychoactive compound in cannabis that produces the addictive high sensation. There's also medical cannabis. France has been experimenting with it over the past few months, with people suffering from conditions like epilepsy or multiple sclerosis. In these cases, cannabis is consumed in the form of oil or capsules, prescribed and handed out by health professionals. The dosage of THC varies according to the patient, but it's never as high as that of recreational cannabis. But lately, the biggest buzz has been over cannabis as a wellness product, specifically cannabidiol or CBD, the non-psychoactive portion of the plant. It's much sought after for its relaxing properties and is said to pose no threat of addiction. Long illegal in France, the government now permits the sale of CBD-based products, following a European Court of Justice ruling last November.
So France is Europe's #1 cannabis consumer, and while half the population supports its legalization, recently centrist President Emmanuel Macron quashed any hopes of a change on his watch, vowing instead to turn up the heat on dealers. But a year away from the next general election, some of his opponents point to a law and order smokescreen pandering to the right. Here's more on the political stakes.
During his presidential campaign, Emmanuel Macron pledged to reform France's 1970 cannabis law, one of the toughest in Europe, which can send weed smokers to prison.
I propose simplifying the process so that police can take action immediately, with the possibility of just giving a fine.
Once he became president, however, he aligned himself with successive French governments, keeping the doors shut for recreational marijuana. He has ruled out its legalization during his term, saying narcotics need to be curbed, not boosted. Many think the status quo is untenable given the reality on the ground. France has one of Europe's highest number of cannabis users, including teenagers. A group of lawmakers has presented a draft bill calling for controlled legalization rather than decriminalization, which would make users free from prosecution but keep the substance illegal. Danielle Obono from the far-left France Insoumise party is one of the signatories.
There already is an industry, an economy around cannabis, only that it's illegal. Legalizing it would not only bring additional resources to the state, but also enable more oversight into how it's produced and distributed, as well as into the toxic levels or the quality of the substance, which is also important in terms of public health.
An argument backed by a recent parliamentary report whose authors include members of Macron's own party.
Cannabis consumption in France continues to increase despite its very repressive policy and large amounts of money, more than €1 billion each year spent on fighting the trafficking and the consumption of cannabis.
Opponents to the proposal say the government shouldn't be selling drugs.
I find it difficult to picture the French Republic's logo next to a cannabis leaf. Some people will think we are launching a public service of cannabis.
Public opinion is growing in favour of legalisation. More than half of French people support decriminalising its consumption.
Well, for more on the use of cannabis for medical purposes, I'm joined now by hospital psychiatrist Nicolas Authier, who in March 2021, with the health minister by his side, signed the country's first ever cannabis prescription as part of a limited nationwide trial. Dr. Authier, hello.
Hello.
Thank you very much for being with us. Now, you head the medical pharmacology service at Clermont-Ferrand Hospital's Pain Relief Evaluation Centre, and you're presiding over the Temporary Scientific Committee on Medical Cannabis. Could you tell us more about the goal and intended target of this experimental treatment first?
The main aim of this experimental treatment, which isn't a clinical trial but is actually to help guide public policy, is to test a plan that would authorize the use of cannabis-based products for patients when current treatments aren't enough to relieve the pain caused by their illnesses.
So what kind of illnesses are we talking about here?
We're looking at 5 clinical situations here. Firstly, chronic pain, which is caused by the nervous system. They're very painful handicaps. In 2/3 of cases, the treatments prescribed don't end up relieving the pain. There's also forms of epilepsy in children and adults that resist medical treatment. Spasticity, in other words, abnormal muscle contractions that cause pain, which we find in patients suffering from multiple sclerosis or with spinal cord injuries. But also in situations linked to cancer, which we term rebellious symptoms. We don't treat the cancer, but the symptoms that are associated with it, or the symptoms arising from cancer treatments.
So what is it that you actually prescribe, and how is it different from CBD?
We prescribe 3 categories of products. They're based on oils extracted from cannabis plants. These oils are either rich in CBD, cannabidiol, or THC, tetrahydrocannabinol, or a mix of these 2 substances. And using these 2 substances, we can find the right mix for the right patient. CBD is one of the substances that make up cannabis, whose mood-altering effects are far less potent than THC. The risk of addiction is practically non-existent, but it's only one of 2 substances that make up cannabis. It's important to consider THC too when it comes to pain relief.
And are there concerns that greenlighting access to these products for a limited number of patients might lead to addiction, or perhaps even encourage new people to self-medicate?
Yes, addiction is a risk when it comes to cannabis, especially when cannabis oils contain THC, which is the substance that creates dependence. That could be a physical dependence, when you get used to the product, or in rarer cases, that could be a real addiction, where the user loses control completely. But that will rarely be the case, because the treatment will be prescribed by a doctor who must ensure the benefits outweigh the risks. And whenever the risks become too great, the treatment will be stopped.
You're a psychiatrist. Given the ongoing crisis and its impact on mental health generally with the general population, how do you view France's CBD boom?
I don't know if France's CBD boom is really linked to the coronavirus crisis, but we have to be wary when it comes to stress and anxiety, because CBD has an impact on the body, whether or not it's natural, so it can have negative effects. Sometimes it can poison the liver. It can cause problems when it interacts with other medicine, so one has to be cautious and sometimes favor using psychotherapy or behavioral approaches. Sometimes you just have to wait and hope that things will get better over the next few months.
Dr. Authier, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, today, a growing number of French consumers are turning to the light relief of CBD. Shops, chefs, and even 4-star hotels like this one are all eager to showcase the molecule's many virtues. In this instance, with a chill room service experience, complete with cannabidiol-laced cocktails, edibles, and even massage oil. But as you're about to see, this burgeoning market is also taking a hit from frequent legal challenges.
It has the same taste and smell, but is not the same. While it looks like cannabis, which is listed as a narcotic, these are cannabidiol or CBD products with less than 0.2% of the psychoactive ingredient of the drug. Customers in France can buy CBD in shops like this one. Dan Elemaleh owns about 80 CBD stores and has a business turnover of 15 million euros a year. One headache is adapting to changing rules.
One moment CBD is allowed, then forbidden, then they want to ban the flower. We try to keep up with the changes. They check up on us regularly. We've had the police, the customs, we've even had the fraud squad checking on us at times.
All French CBD stores were shut in France in 2018. Then a ruling by the European Court of Justice in 2020 gave CBD the okay. The French government has been preparing new regulations since then. Hemp flower can now be cultivated to extract CBD for processed products such as oils or creams, but it will be prohibited for sale in its raw state, which currently accounts for 50 to 80% of turnover in CBD shops. The argument put forward is that the police cannot distinguish CBD from cannabis during police checks. This MP, author of a Parliament report on CBD, disagrees with the decision.
A shop owner is not a trafficker. Shop owners declare everything. They're selling from shops. Why would they take the risk of ending up in jail to sell a product that's not legal? It's just not realistic. It won't help the sector develop if consumption of hemp is not allowed.
Farmer Nicolas Authier is in the hemp business, with part of his production reserved to supplying what is called the well-being cannabis sector. Classic hemp farming mainly supplies stems and seeds for the manufacture of building materials or biodegradable plastic. It is much less labor-intensive than this form of hemp flower production.
We let the plant grow to the maximum. We cut the top here and there to make it double. With this flower, we will choose the ones that won't pollinate or have seeds. So there's a lot of work.
Nicolas Authier has 20,000 plants. He can get at least 500 euros for each kilo, meaning each harvest represents an income of around €250,000. That potential is attracting more and more French farmers. The French authorities, for the moment though, are unconvinced.
With that, we leave this edition. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to France 24.